Hello! I am the Story Girl, and welcome to the story of Princess Patches. There once was a king whose queen was dying. His queen was the most beautiful woman in the world. Long, flowing golden hair and perfect pale skin. Even as she lay sick and dying, he gazed upon her beauty. She whispered up to him, promise me you will have no other queen unless she matches me in beauty." And the queen slipped away. The king wept for a year and a day, and then started to feel that the kingdom could do with a queen again, a queen to give a beautiful woman's touch to the kingdom. He couldn't find a woman who matched his wife in beauty. The only person in the kingdom who was as beautiful as his wife had been was his own daughter, who was her mother in miniature, with beautiful golden hair and pale, perfect skin, and eyes that sparkled like 2 stars. Can't marry my own daughter, but I may be able to make her a queen sooner than she thought. He gathered his counselors all around, and he said, I just thought the very thing. This kingdom needs a queen, and I promised my queen that the next queen would be as beautiful as she, so I'm going to have the oldest and wisest of my counselors marry my daughter. There will be a new king and a new queen, and I can retire and rest. Well, the counselor thought that this was a very good plan indeed, for he had been making plans about what he would do if he was the king. But the princess didn't care for this plan at all. She knew the oldest counselor. He was very old, and he was not very kind. I will choose my own husband, thought she. I'll have to delay this wedding. Papa, she said to her father, I will not marry. Said her father, of course you will marry. All women get married. You don't understand, Papa, said the princess. I will not marry until I am given 5 gifts. 5 gifts, said the king. Yes, Papa. The 5 gifts that I need are 1, the walnut that will hold anything that is put into it. Number 2, I need a dress that shines like the stars glittering in heaven. Number 3, a dress that shines like the moon, pale and lovely in the sky. Number 4, a dress that shines like the sun in the afternoon. And number 5, a coat. The coat, said her father. It seems a bit off the mark. 3 dresses and a coat. It can't just be any coat, Papa. This coat must be made out of the skins of every animal in the kingdom. Every single animal must contribute a bit of their skin to this coat. Oh, why do you need these gifts? I need them, Papa, said the princess. All right. Princess was hoping she had thought of hard enough gifts that she might delay the wedding inevitably. But the king was not to be deterred. He began at once looking through every single walnut in the world to find the walnut that would hold anything you put into it. And Then he hired the very best dressmakers and tailors, and the very best astronomers, everybody who knew anything about the sun, the moon, and the stars, came together and created the 3 beautiful gowns. The 5th gift took the longest. Every single animal in the kingdom was tracked down and extracted just a piece of their skin, which was carefully sewn together in many patches into a large coat, perfectly fitted for the princess. "Well, it is done, my darling," said the king. "Here are your 5 gifts: the walnut that will hold anything you put into it, the 3 gowns of the celestial orbs, and the coat of many skins. And tomorrow we will have our wedding." "Tomorrow," thought the princess, "there will be no bride." That night she dressed in a gown that she had borrowed from one of her maids, and wrapped herself in the coat of many skins, stuffed the dresses into the walnut. She also stuffed a few more things into that walnut: a ring, beautiful and made of gold, a necklace that had belonged to her mother, and a bracelet that she felt like she really couldn't live without. She tucked all these things away and tucked the walnut shell into the pocket of her coat and made her way into the world. She trudged through the night, getting as far as she could, wrapped herself tightly in her coat, and hid inside of a tree trunk. She slept all that day, and all the next night too. When she woke up, she heard the barking of dogs, the howling of dogs, hunting dogs, and hunting horns being sounded all around her. "What is it? What creature's in the tree?" she heard voices saying. "What is it?" said the hunters as the dogs barked all around. "We'll see if we can catch it alive. I've never seen an animal with so many different colors on before." "Oh, please, please," said a voice from the tree trunk. "Oh, it's human." The princess stepped out from the tree trunk. "Please, I'm a daughter of a farmer, but he's dead. My mother's dead too, and I don't have anywhere to go. I was hoping to find a village where I could find some work." "Find a village?" said the hunters. "You're near the king's city, don't you know?" "The king? What king?" "Oh, only the kindest king in the world, young lady. I'm sure we can find some work for you in the king's own kitchens." So the hunters scooped up the princess and put her on one of the horses and rode off with her to the king's castle. This king was the king of a kingdom that was a few kingdoms down from the princess's father's kingdom, and he was very well known for being very handsome and for having a very peaceful, hard-working kingdom. The princess was taken to the cook, a very large woman who, when looking at this girl, all wrapped tight in her coat of many skins, gave a little laugh. "Oh, well, what's your name then?" said the cook. My name is Patches," said the princess. "Patches?" said the cook. "Yes, Patches. I always wear clothes with patches. That's what people call me." Well, the princess, who would now be called Patches, became a member of the working kitchen, and the cook, who being a very large woman was very stern, but had a bit of a soft spot when it came to giving her undercooks and servants treats, worked her very hard, and the princess and Patches soon learned to mix up puddings and roll out pies and bake a loaf of bread so it didn't fall in. But what she liked best was mixing up a delicious pot of soup, and she became very good at it. The cook, whenever there was a fancy ball or anything going upstairs, would often sneak upstairs to have a peek, and let the other servants if they wanted to. And it just so happened that only a few months after Patches started working in the kitchens, that there was a grand ball. In fact, this ball was so grand, it would carry on for 3 whole nights. You see, there were many kings and queens throughout the land who had their eye on the king of this particular land, who had not as yet gotten married, and they were brushing off their most beautiful daughters to bring to this ball. Wow. Patches loved working in the kitchens, and she didn't mind it very much. But the one thing she did miss about being a princess was dancing at a ball, with all of the rush and the sound of the music she loved so much. Oh, she wished that she could attend this ball, if only to dance again. She had an idea. On the very night, she worked very hard to put up all of the pies and cakes and cookies and loaves of bread that she was supposed to. She crept over to the cook. "Ma'am," said Patches, "there's a grand party going on upstairs, isn't there?" "Why, yes, there is," said the cook. "Well, would it be all right if I just go and have a peek at it? Maybe for an hour?" "An hour?" said the cook. "That's quite a long time." "Of course you may. You've done such hard work already. But make sure that you're back here after an hour so that you can cook up the king's soup." "Yes, ma'am," said Patches, and she rushed away to her little room. She rushed away to her little room and washed off the soot and grime from her face and hands, and took out from her walnut shell her beautiful ball gown that glittered with 1,000,000 stars, and rushed up to the ballroom. When she entered, everybody looked. Oh, her golden hair was so golden, and her skin was pale and perfect, and she danced like an angel. Every man who had come to the ball wished to have her as a partner, but there was one in particular who they all deferred to. It was the king. The king danced and was enchanted by the way her eyes sparkled, just like 2 little blue stars in her eyes, 2 little blue stars in her head. Just after an hour had passed, he was about to ask her her name when she curtsied and quickly rushed out of the ballroom. He couldn't see where she had gone because at that moment everybody had begun the next dance. He tried to find her. She had vanished and disappeared. Little Patches was running as fast as she could back to her room, where she changed out of her dress and put back on her coat of many skins and rushed down to the cook. "I made it," she said. "Oh, just on time, too," said the cook. "Now, you make the king's soup while I have a turn having a peek at the ball." So the cook went up to have her peek at the ball, while Patches chopped up carrots and celery and all good things and stirred them into the broth. But as she was stirring, she didn't notice that her ring that she always wore, the little gold ring she had brought with from her father's home, slipped off of her finger and into the pot of soup. She didn't have much time. She poured the soup into individual bowls for every single guest, and the servants came and brought the trays up for the first course, the soup course. It just so happens that that little gold ring got mixed up in the king's bowl of soup. And as the king was eating, he noticed the soup was better than any he had ever had before. He had had many excellent soups. He ate it, commented on how delicious it was, and then he found at the very bottom a little gold ring. "Huh. Call the cook." He slipped the gold ring into his pocket. "Did something go wrong with the soup? Worried the cook. Did you let one of your hairs get into it? I don't think so, said Patches. The cook, trembling, came before the king. The king smiled at her and said, Cook, the soup was wonderful tonight. Who made it? The cook didn't want anybody to get in trouble, especially not Patches. I cooked the soup, said the cook. The soup was different than it's ever been before, and I found this, he said, holding up the gold ring. Oh, that, I don't know where that ring came from. Are you sure it was you that made the soup? No, Your Majesty. It was Patches. Bring her in, said the king. Patches was worried that she had been discovered. She, trembling in her coat of many skins, stood before the king. Yes, Your Majesty, she said with a very high-pitched voice. You don't need to tremble. I was just wondering, is this your ring? No, it's not. That's not my ring, said Patches. Very well. The soup was very good tonight. Thank you for making it. You're welcome. And little Patches rushed away back to the kitchens, blushing a bit. This king was just the sort of man she wished her father had wanted her to marry, for she would not mind marrying him. The next night was the second night of the ball, and another chance for Patches to dance again. She quickly went through all of her duties, asked the cook for permission, and rushed off, changing into her dress that glowed like the moon. And when she entered the ballroom, everybody clapped to see the beautiful girl who danced like she was flying upon the wind, like a little puff of air. And the king took her in her arms and danced. While they danced, he pressed her, asking for more information. What was her name? Who was her father? What land did she come from? But she smiled and blushed, didn't say a word. And then, when the dance was over, she slipped away, and the king didn't see that she had rushed out through a side door. She ran as fast as she could, changed into her regular dress and coat of skins, and trotted back down to the kitchens. Oh, right on time again, said the cook. My turn. And the cook bustled away to have her turn, watching the dancing, while little Patches chopped up potatoes for the soup, and mixed in the cream very carefully, and measured the spices. She didn't notice while she was doing this the bracelet that was still on her wrist slipped off and into the soup. She poured out the soup into individual bowls, and the servants came and served it to all the guests, and the bracelet was found in the king's bowl of soup. Said the king. Call for the cook. The cook stood trembling before the king. The king said, Cook, why are you trembling? Is there something wrong with the soup, sir? I promise that we make the soup the very best we can. If something had gone wrong, I can imagine what it might be. No, the soup is excellent, even better than last night. I was just wondering, is this your bracelet? No, said the cook, that's not mine. Did Patches make the soup again? Yes, Your Majesty. Send her in. Patches stood before the king with her head ducked, hoping she had smudged enough dirt and grime on her face to disguise herself. Patches! Excellent soup again. Is this your bracelet? No, said she again. Oh. By this time the king was suspicious. All right. Well, off you go to the kitchens. The next night was the third and final night of the ball, and Patches knew was her last chance to dance to the sound of the violins. She worked harder than she had before to make sure that everything was perfect. Every loaf of bread and pie and cookie was well baked, and the cook smiled at her. You make soup better than I ever did, but I can't deny you your bit of fun. Go ahead and go up. And Patches ran and changed into her final dress, the most beautiful dress, the one that shined like the sun, and it set off her golden hair perfectly, so that when she stepped into the ballroom, all the ladies said, "Oh, she looks like an angel." And the king stepped forward and took her hand and swept her into the figures of the dance. And the whole time they danced, he just stared at her beautiful face. And she stared back. What she didn't notice was he secretly slipped the golden ring onto her finger, saw that it fit, a perfect fit. As soon as the dance was over, he tried to hold her in his hands, tried to keep her from going, but she slipped away. But he had stopped her just long enough that if she didn't hurry, she would be quite late. So instead of changing into her other dress, she just put her coat on over top of her golden dress and smudged her face as much as she could, but she left out a single finger. She ran down to the kitchens. "You're a bit late," said the cook. I know," said Patches, and she began to chop up all the things for the soup again and mix them as quickly as possible. And she was in such a rush she didn't notice that the necklace that had belonged to her mother slipped off of her neck into the soup. She poured the soup into individual bowls and stood in the corner and hoped against hope that there would be nothing wrong with the soup tonight. If she was discovered, she might have to run away. If she ran away, there would be no more balls, and no more handsome king. The king searched the bottom of his soup immediately and pulled out the golden necklace. "Call for Patches," he said, grinning. Wow, the girl was brought, trembling worse than ever. "Yes, your highness. Yes, your majesty. Yes," said she. "Bring her here," said the king. Took her hand and looked at it and saw a single white finger with a golden ring. "It's you," said the king. "I knew it." "Me?" said Patches. "Yes." "Will you marry me, Patches?" She said yes. The king and Princess Patches were married. The end. The story has a lot of the same features as the story of Cinderella, but it has one thing that makes it different, and that is that Patches relies on her own strength and not on the benefactors like a fairy godmother or a magic fairy. She makes choices that makes her story happen, and that is what makes her the main character of this story. Remember, you are the main character of your story. Thank you for joining the story today. Bye.